In the 1960s, when Star Trek first premiered, one name became inseparable from the Starship Enterprise itself: William Shatner as Captain James T. Kirk. On screen, he embodied the ideal commander, bold, decisive, and driven by an unshakable urge to explore the unknown. But behind the polished images and legendary voyages through the galaxy, Star Trek was far less harmonious than audiences believed. Off-camera, it was a world of clashing egos, quiet rivalries, and tensions that simmered beneath carefully controlled smiles. Some wounds were never spoken of, not because they were small, but because they were too difficult to confront. Now at 93 years old, William Shatner is no longer staying silent. For the first time, he openly revisits what was buried behind the scenes, from struggles over power and control to carefully managed public images, and to his complicated relationship with Leonard Nimoy, whom Shatner has described as possessing a strong ego and a need to dominate the spotlight, creating lasting friction on set. So what really happened behind the closed doors of Star Trek? What truths were concealed for more than half a century? And why has William Shatner chosen to speak about them only now? Leonard Nimoy is a name that instantly brings to an entire generation's mind the pointed ears, the cold gaze, and the calm voice of the half-human, half-Vulcan Spock. In Star Trek, Spock represented reason and logic, the perfect counterpoint to the impulsive emotions of Captain Kirk. But behind the character that seemed so impassive, Nimoy was a man with an extremely large ego, a powerful presence, and a desire to control his own image to a degree many in the cast quietly acknowledged. To Nimoy, Spock was not just a role, it was his identity. He never saw himself as merely an actor. He was a photographer, a director, a poet, a thinker who pondered philosophy and the nature of humanity. Spock in his hands was not simply a character created by writers, but a cultural icon shaped by Nimoy's own vision. He cared about every detail, from the precision of Spock's dialogue to the psychological logic behind every action. Even the eyes, breathing, and camera angles had to serve a consistent vision. To some, this was dedication, but to others it looked like a star attitude, an overly serious man whose pride was inseparable from the character he portrayed. On set, while others laughed and joked, Nimoy maintained his calm demeanor, quietly observing as if he carried Spock with him at all times. William Shatner once said half-jokingly that Leonard brought Spock into real life too. The comment sounded lighthearted, but beneath it lay unease. Spock did not just dominate the screen. He gradually became the soul of the series, something that many felt should have belonged to Captain Kirk. This became the first key to the tragedy between them. Shatner felt jealousy, not petty or malicious, but the kind born from a desire to compete for the top position. He was the leading man, the one around whom the press should have revolved, yet reality did not align with that. Fans sent more letters to Nimoy. Critics praised Spock as the heart of Star Trek, and Spock, not Kirk, became the pop culture icon. Shatner admitted this openly, saying that although he was the captain of the Enterprise, the one people talked about was Spock. Behind that mild statement was a scrape against the pride of the lead actor. Shatner recalled days when he left the set questioning his place in the series. He asked for more lines, tried to reclaim the spotlight, and sometimes became overpowering in shared scenes, often without realizing it. But the more he pushed, the more Spock stood out in an entirely different way, silent, calm, and strange in a manner viewers could not ignore. On screen they complemented each other, while in real life they rubbed against one another, two men with large egos orbiting the same star. Their conflict simmered quietly, without open arguments. Shatner admitted plainly that he wanted attention and did not deny it. Together they created a legend, but they also left scars in each other's hearts. The tension reached a turning point during the filming of the episode Arena, which required an outdoor fight scene involving real explosions. Standing only a few steps off could cause serious injury from shockwaves and debris. Nimoy stood exactly on his marked position, trusting the crew's precision, but Shatner noticed the distance was too close to the blast point and warned him quietly to step back. Nimoy refused, confident he was fine. When the explosion went off, it was closer than planned. No debris caused injury, but the sound shockwave hit directly. They continued acting, but the ringing in their ears never stopped. Shatner described it as a cicada-like sound that followed him for the rest of his life, even in silence. Doctors called it tinnitus. Shatner called it the mistake that ruined him. He did not directly blame Nimoy, but the story carried an unspoken meaning about stubbornness, perfectionism, and placing character above personal safety. Ironically, both men paid the price. That moment revealed the complexity of their relationship, logic and discipline on one side, emotion and instinct on the other, all tangled together. Yet that very tension fueled the greatness of Star Trek, lifting it beyond ordinary television into a cultural phenomenon. Despite hidden conflicts, they never fully cut ties. When Nimoy passed away, Shatner said he felt empty, not with loud grief, but with the loss of someone who had mirrored his own ego for years. He described them as friends, rivals, and brothers who hurt each other, but also created something beautiful together, a bond too complex to label with a single word. But the dynamic with Nimoy was only one part of the behind-the-scenes picture. With another cast member, the conflict was far less balanced. The long-running tension between William Shatner and George Takei became a thread stretched tight for more than half a century. From the beginning, the atmosphere on set was complicated. Shatner bore the pressure of being the lead, while Takei, who played Sulu, valued teamwork and discipline. Over time, issues like screen time, spotlight, and name order on posters became seeds of resentment. Takei publicly called Shatner a prima donna, describing the cast as close except for one person, a statement that required no further explanation. To him, Shatner always placed himself at the center of the Star Trek universe. Shatner did not remain silent. He responded by accusing Takei of clinging to old grudges and blackening his name, calling it a sickness that persisted decades later. Even when Shatner flew into space at age 90, Takei mocked the event, calling him a guinea pig. By then, the conflict had moved beyond professional disputes into something deeply emotional, driven by pride, bitterness, and an inability to let go. The distance between them only grew with time, and what might have faded instead hardened into a lifelong standoff. Other cast members also described tension centered around Shatner. Walter Koenig recalled that some actors felt Shatner had enough power to affect their careers, even if he never explicitly used it. His central position made every interaction more sensitive. Many remembered moments when scenes were subtly adjusted to keep Kirk in the spotlight, through camera angles, positioning, or added lines. To actors fighting for limited screen time, these small actions felt like sharp needles to their pride.